Hello, everyone. Welcome yet again to another exciting episode of the Thinking Reimagined podcast. I am Nifemi Oguntoye. Friday is International Motherheads Day, and attention is yet again turned to the planet in which we live. It's quite amazing because we're busy with politics, economy, and quite a number of other germane issues to talk about in Nigeria. But it's also important that we pay attention to where we live. Growing concerns about population, loss of biodiversity, depleting quality of the environment, the quality of air that we breathe in, amongst quite a number of other things. So I'm joined on this particular one by a renowned environmental analyst. Also, I have a youth activist, a future surveyor joining us on this particular conversation. So I'm just going to quickly introduce them to you. Mr. Kintude Disu is the founder of POP Beach Club, a social enterprise based in Lagos, Nigeria. Thank you so much for finding time to join us on this one, Mr. Disu.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. Glad to be here.
Olufunso Kenny, good to see you again. Kenny is a youth activist who also joins us from work at this hour. Mavina Lisa, good to see you, Mavina. Thank you for finding time to join us as well.
Thank
All
you
right, so
very much.
next up, I'd like to begin with Kelvin. Perhaps you can talk to us about how much attention we're paying to the earth, given the fact that we have quite a number of things to think and talk about. Do you agree with that? I doubt if Kenny can hear me. All right, so your mic is mute, Kenny.
Hello? Hello, Nifemi.
Yes, I can hear you now. Go ahead, please.
Thanks for having me. It's been a while since I was on this podcast, and I'm very happy to be back. And you asked how much effort, or can you please ask the question one more time?
I'm asking how much attention you think we're paying to, the condition of the planet that is hosting us.
Well, I would like to speak from a global South perspective. We in the global South, we are not all that concerned with the atmosphere or the climate or the environment or the planet as a whole, because we have other issues that we are, contending with at the moment, like developmental issues, security, and a host of other things. But then these things should not, take priority, because the planet that we live in is also something that should be prioritized. Because if there's no place to live, then there is no place to develop. So we should actually pay a lot of attention to the atmosphere, to the planet that we live in. But then, because of a host of other things, we are actually not paying attention. That could be it, or it could be a case of ignorance. Maybe we are not so aware of the importance of the planet. Or we as a people have lived on planet Earth for like thousands of years, and we're like, this is the way it has always been. We will be here thousands of years from now. But that's not true, actually. If you don't do something about what's going on, we will not be here thousands of years from now. So,
absolutely, I agree with you. Olisa, as a future surveyor, you'll probably be working a lot with the earth. How much significance is this observance to your study, and how much conversation are you guys having around it, particularly in school?
Well, of a truth, we are not really giving much attention to the earth itself. In as much as we are doing surveying and geoinformatics, it's more like trying to find precise positions and bring out lengths and points precisely and accurately on the earth. but the earth itself is not really being spoken about. We are just trying to get to know the earth more, get to, like in the aspect of hydro survey, where we get to survey the seabed and get to know how undulating it is or how much. Thank you, Ma. Dr. Amma said my background is good for the. I'm actually home, and there is no network in my house, so I had to come outside. Thank you for that. So the earth itself is not really giving that much attention, just that just like what Kenny has said, just like what Kenny has said, that we don't give much attention to the earth. Yes, we don't. Pollution is everywhere. Noise pollution, CO2, maintain. The production of it is too much every day, and the awareness is low. We Nigerians, we don't give much attention to that, and as surveyors, I don't think Nigeria here we talk about that. We don't even have yes, we have a day to plant trees every year. Yes, we have a day to plant trees every year to aid for to reduce the greenhouses. Yes, we do that to celebrate that. I think I was part of that last year. So apart from that, I don't think we have any other thing to help in helping the earth. We don't even have seminars. We don't have. No, I don't think. No.
Maybe it's not an emergency yet. At least you have a tree behind you. I can hear the birds chirping. Perhaps Mr. Disu can help us understand the challenges. Perhaps the main challenges that we are being faced with the earth. This is Nigeria. This is Lagos, where I believe most of us are talking from. And when the rains come in, it's always a very big concern, particularly for those on the island. We don't usually connect that easily with issues with climate change and, what we are doing, what our habit is really contributing to our lot in that regard. Perhaps Mr. Disu can help us understand that better.
I'm glad you said Lagos State, because it is very important for us in Lagos State to understand that we will bear the brunt of climate change rises. And the current protocols are set for us to achieve certain benchmark criteria by the year 2050. And it is, Lagos State government has signed up to most of all these protocols. And it is how we achieve them. Everything is going to change, and it's going to change really fast. If you notice, it has already started changing. The storms this year are a lot worse than we've ever seen before, and they will only get worse. In South Africa right now, if you've turned on the news, you'll see the floods there and the stuff that's happening there, and this will only get worse. And in Lagos, most of Lagos, I think about 60% of Lagos is actually below sea level. And we are protected from the ocean by the Western Peninsula and by the peninsulas on both sides. The peninsula, the Eastern Peninsula, which is where Lekki is basically already we've messed around with it too much. We're trying to find a balance now, and we don't even know where it will go. So it's offering very little protection to the states as is. Then you also have the Western Peninsula, which is still to a certain extent intact, but even that has been degraded. We've lost 3 kilometers of our mangroves in the last 20 years. And mangroves are one of the things that not only do they hold the earth together, they help stabilize that whole area. Once they go, that whole area is exposed to erosion. And these peninsulas they're like natural dams. You cannot really touch them because you just don't have enough. You can't put enough cement into the ocean to take the place of a peninsula. So they are our only protection from ocean surge when it comes. And the lagoons around Lagos are what drain this thing. They are the receptacles that hold the water for us when there's a storm. And these are all threatened. We've embarked on a very dangerous craze of producing new land for sale by dredging the rivers to make them deeper, which brings a greater flow of sediment from the rivers uptown into the lagoons, making the lagoons shallower, as you will see around Oroshoke and all that area, and which means they hold less water during storms, which puts all of us under risk. The best way to see this is that everything you do right now endangers the earth. Just you wake up in the morning, you start your car, that's CO2 being produced. You open a bottle of Fanta, it's all gone. It's everything we do endangers the earth. So we have to work out responsible ways for dealing with the earth. And all our problems can be traced back to our behavior and our connection with the earth. The herdsmen are running away from the north of Africa and are moving into the southern part of Africa. To our own part, southern part of West Africa. But this has been going on for ages, and it is climate change that is driving this migration. But we don't notice it because we do not attach everything to climate change. So the best way to move forward or to consider this is for everything that one does, for us to try and link it to the climate. What is the effect that we have? Is it a positive or is it a negative effect? You plant a tree, it's a positive effect. You drive a car, it's a negative effect. So if you're going to drive the car, how many trees are you going to plant? That is the best way to look at it. And whatever you do for the climate now, you can take it, this is on a governmental level, you can take it as in general insurance for your people. Because when the problems come, how are you going to handle it is what we really need to be thinking about. Are we prepared?
You talked about dredging and reclaiming the land earlier. We're building the whole city on water. A lot of reference has been made to Dubai in that regard. The economic impact it will have on the nation and the country in the coming years, making room for the growing population. Is there something completely wrong in reclaiming the land, or perhaps there's just a more responsible way to do it?
Well, actually, Eco-Atlantic City was they needed to do that to protect Victoria Island. It was built to protect Victoria Island and the further and the problems that would have existed if they didn't do that. So in itself, the reclamation of that land has to be done with proper due process and to see things on a wider level. So the reclamation so they had to do the Eco-Atlantic City, because that is just what they did there was to return the land to how it was about 120 years ago, when in the first place we dredged the harbor of Lagos, the mouth of the harbor of Lagos, to create the harbor. And that harbor created the wealth that is Lagos. So we now have to manage it. We changed nature 100 years, 1906, when we created the harbor of Lagos, and we changed our own economic fortunes, So and then we stopped maintaining it, and we saw what happened. So now we have to replace it and manage it and maintain it. So that was not the reclamation I was actually talking about. I was talking about more the kind of reclamation you see if you live in the Koshofa area, I think it is, the Keja, all these areas and everything, where there's a lot of new land that has been created by the dredging, by dredging of the rivers, because that's the Ogun River Basin. And this is its watershed that we live in. And what you get there is more sediment going into the lagoons and, from up country and flooding this thing and making the lagoons shallower, reducing the volume of water they can hold during storms. But Eco-Atlantic is slightly different from that.
Indeed. I'll get back to you in a short while to talk about our culture of plastics, how terrible it is, how long it takes to degrade, and what we can do to begin to change that. There is what is called the Great Global Cleanup, and I'm coming to you very quickly, Kenny. It's a global campaign to remove billions of pieces of trash from neighborhoods, from beaches, from rivers, lakes and places like that. And it's an effort to reduce waste and plastic pollution in a way to, improve the quality of life of people and prevent harm to wildlife as well as human beings. What do you think is the biggest challenge to achieving a change in lifestyle? Because you are in a public vehicle, you still see people take PET bottle, consume the content, throw it on the road, and the final destination definitely is the drainage. The drainages get blocked, and then it rains. Before you know it, everywhere is flooded. We talk about this year in, year out, but there's a big challenge between what we say and what we see majority of the people do. How do you think we can bridge that gap?
A couple of things. I would like to start with education. People need to know of these things. Why we think that a lot of people know these things? To be honest, people do not know. So you have to get the word out to people that some of these habits are unsustainable. They are dangerous to our ecosystem. And another thing is to provide alternatives. So when there are no alternatives, what do you expect people to do then? Like, people are drinking from PET bottles. And you should ask yourself, if they don't drink from PET bottles, what do they drink from? So if there are no alternatives, people are likely going to stick to what they know or what is available. Then, like selling things with polythene liners. We know these things do not degrade as fast as paper, but paper bags are costlier. So there is this perceived dilemma between choosing to develop, choosing to engage in commercial activities, and choosing to conserve or preserve the atmosphere or the ecosystem. So let's look at developments from the global north now. So the global north, let's looking particularly at Europe during the 19th century, I guess, or 19th century, during the time of the, what's it called now? Industrial Revolution. So Europe was able to harness the power of coal and use it to, build steam engines, built massive boats. With these boats, they were able to go across the Atlantic Ocean, go to other continents, go to Africa and colonize this part. And they're also able to, extract resources from this place, and they took it to their places to basically develop on what? On fossil fuel. So fossil fuels basically fueled the developments that we see in European nations, in American nations, through fossil fuel. When you now come to global south, and we are trying to, emulate this pattern of development, this unsustainable pattern of development. But then we still see that this unsustainable habits actually fueled these other countries or these other places' development. So if there are no alternatives, people are still bound to continue doing what they are used to, even though it is unsustainable, even though it's harmful. So the major things I would recommend are: one, educate people on the harmful effects of those habits and provide alternatives. Because if there are no alternatives, persons will still have to do what they can do. So we all know that burning coal is dangerous to the ecosystem. But that woman in, let's say, Maiduguri, what else in a local place in Maiduguri, what else we should cook with? We should start cooking with, even using gas is also harmful. But what other option does she have? So those are my two recommendations: educate people on the harmful effects of their habits and provide alternatives.
Malvina, what are your thoughts in this regard?
Okay, I would go with awareness and then trying to force the people to do it. I would use an example. There is this should I call it a movement? There is this movement that happened in Oka. They had, it was I don't know what's their name, Aswama, Oka State Waste Management something. I've forgotten how they call it, but it's called Aswama. They used 3 days to remove waste from it was not waste, it was can. All these Coca-Cola can bottles, Fanta can bottles. They had a target of 5,000 bottles, of which they used 3 days to carry 5,000 bottles. Imagine 3 days they were able to remove 5,000 from Oka, Anambra City, just the capital city. And then what happens to Onitsha? What happens to Nnewi, where there is, I go on the road every day. I go to work every day, and every day somebody is drinking Coca-Cola and they are throwing it outside of the glass, outside of the car. And I'll be like, even if I'm to tell that person, don't do this next time, they'll be like, why? Why shouldn't I throw it? So they don't know. Some of these persons don't know. They are elderly, women, the men. They don't know. They don't know the cost. This thing, the harm these things are causing in the drainage system. Everywhere is dirty. Even if they pack it today, tomorrow water will still bring it back, because everything is going inside the water. Everything is, and when there is no drainage pattern, the drainage pattern are even low, shallow. The deep ones are covered with dirt and everything. So awareness should be done, both online, both in school, both from home. All these things. I went to Akwa Ibom recently. The city is clean. They had it was Uyo precisely. They had waste bin almost every junction. We went to one field, one field. I don't know the field. I don't know how they call it, but it was a field where you could just go for a picnic party and something like that, and take pictures and stuff like that. At every part, they had a waste bin. So there was no way you would see something littered on the ground. Everybody's going to the waste bin to go and throw his or her dirt in that place. So if these things are put in place, like in my school, you have waste bin in the door, you have waste bin here, although people will still throw dirt on the ground. But when you keep ringing all these things, we the youth, the children at home, your mother in the house, your father in the house, in the marketplace, you know that when you generate dirt, be responsible to take your dirt to the designated place for where they throw dustbin. Don't just litter it anyhow. So awareness should be done. Every man, every woman, every child should be responsible for the dirt you create. Both your bubble gum, both your bulb in the house. I see so many persons using this yellow bulb. I don't like that bulb. One, it drains energy. For someone that uses solar installation, solar system for light, it drains energy. So if you're going to be using solar system, you know that, oh, you are going to buy energy bulb. Your fan should be energy saving. Your air conditioner should be energy saving. Your TV should be low energy saving. So when you're conscious of this thing, when I am conscious of it, you are conscious of it, the next neighbor is conscious of it, everybody tends to use things that will save energy, that will save. Everybody will be responsible for his or her debt. Everybody will be responsible of the water amount of water you use in your house, stuff like that. If this house is responsible for his own, this other house, the street will be clean, the city will be cleaned. So that's I think that's it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Mr. Disu, there's a lot of talk about recycling, about, she just mentioned efforts by government to reclaim all of these bottles littering the environment. But how sustainable is this? Sometime last year, I saw some beautiful Christmas trees made from plastic bottles. I have seen state governments paying some stipends to people who are able to pack all these wastes. But it does appear that the more we produce PET bottles, the more people consume these products, and the more we litter it. And the effort at retrieving them isn't as effective. What are your thoughts about this?
It all depends on value. And this is something I've always been saying, that it depends on how you value stuff. And the value of anything depends on the valuer. We use nature because it is valuable. We abuse nature because it is free. And we need to, that was a UK parliamentarian said that recently. We need to start putting a value on everything. That is the only way out of this. Because if we have the right balance of value, then what you will get is people will be careful how they dispose of things and how they use things, which is what I think the last speaker was talking about when she said, oh, she uses solar. So she understands the value there. And that is why she uses bulbs that are energy efficient and a fan that is energy efficient and all these kind of things. So you have to ask who is paying at the end of the day. Without ecology, there is no economy. And people have to realize this, and governments have to realize this and place the proper value for the environment so that they can manage it properly. If you do not assign a value to the water, the quality of water in Lagos, if you do not calculate the amount of fish that comes out of that ocean and goes to us, if we have to buy all that fish, how much will it cost the city of Lagos to buy all that fish? If we do not calculate the amount that the floods cost us, if we not calculate how much will we lose when ocean surge comes and stuff like that, then you cannot put a proper value in how to prevent these things from happening. And so we really need to work on how we value the whole ecosystem right now in Lagos State especially.
How do we help people appreciate this value that you're talking about?
It's government. The people don't have to, you don't have to appreciate the value you put on petrol or on your power. You have to pay for it. That's your part as a citizen. You have to pay for it. And so you either pay for it responsibly if government has set the right value. Like, for example, now we all complain about the price of electricity, but we know it is still cheaper than running a generator, and we prefer it. And so we work our way into getting to that system. And so it is government. Government has an incredible amount of power, and they can legislate. They can legislate against all of these things. Government can stand up and say no more plastic bags, like they've done in Rwanda, in Accra, in in Senegal, in loads of places. No more plastic bags in the city, or wherever, and that is it. It will be taken out. They can say no more plastic bottles, and that is it. It will have to be taken out. It's what government allows. Government is the voice of the people. Government is the power of the people. And so the people need to decide whether they want there to be a Lagos in 30 years or not. It's as simple as that, really. Because all of this, we need to address a generation. The kids now in school, they are the ones who are going to bear the brunt of all of this. The child that was born today is the person who is going to bear the brunt. And it is our duty as the people who have enjoyed the benefits of plastic that we clean up after ourselves. You go to a party, you clean up after yourself, and it's just as simple as that. We have to understand that. And if you're not prepared to be clean, then you would not be able to live in Lagos. It's just as simple as that.
It's a pre-election year, and it's amazing that what you're talking about right now, as important as it is, might not necessarily be on the priority list for the electorate. People are thinking, how old is the contestant? What has it done in the area of economy? Is it corrupt or not? How much money does he have? I'm just wondering how you think the people can also influence government leadership to enforce that these things are being done.
Well, we do it by things like this. We do it by things like this podcast, which is a voice for people to speak out. So, because government has ears, government hears what the people are saying. So we need more people. We need the youth to get on this because they are the people who vote. They have the numbers for votes. So we need to encourage the youth. We need to educate them, and we need them to be aware that they are in trouble, because they are in trouble. In 30 years' time, they will be in trouble. When that ocean rises by, I have been at low tide. I've been walking by the ocean, and I've been walking 4 meters beneath water, beneath the sea level. And I've been walking there. That's the power of that peninsula. It can also rise 4 meters above the sea level. And when that happens, 4 meters is a 2-story building. So you can work out what exactly will happen to most of Lagos when the ocean surge is up to 2 meters is 2 meters high. 4 meters high. The ocean is set to rise about, I think, 1 meter, which is already half of everybody's height by 2050. So you can just check what is going to be around and what is not going to be around in your area, because when the ocean comes, what's going to stop it? So young people,
I'll take one
this
last.
is something for young people.
Indeed. I'll take one last round and ask everyone to give the final comments on this one, particularly your commitment to what you would do to help motherhood this year in commemoration of the International Earth Day. And I'll begin with Kenny.
Personally, I've been trying to conserve water, so I do not use more than I need. That's one. And two, the habit of recycling, more of reusing than recycling though. These are habits that I've tried to take up personally, and conserving of water. These are things that I am doing, and also educating people through my Twitter platform, just telling people why you should care about the motherhood. Just like this you said earlier, you should always see the environmental effects of everything, basically. So I'm trying not to take too much of your time. So I was going to talk about the drying up of Lake Chad and how it's also contributing towards insurgency in northeastern Nigeria and other parts of West Africa, looking at Mali, looking at Niger, looking at Cameroon. I see environment fuels other things. Issues that affect the environment affect us in other ways. So men are losing their means of livelihood. Men used to be fishermen, are losing their means of livelihood because the Lake Chad is drying up and they're taking up other means to survive. And sometimes other means might not be what you'd expect. They might be, criminal activities. And it's because of the economy, because the atmosphere is being affected. As I said, when there is no environment, there is no economy. These things, they are pari passu, one or the other. So personally, I'm conserving water and I'm reusing and I'm recycling.
I think something went wrong with Kenny's connection.
Oh, really? Oh, wow. Where did I stop talking?
So I just like you just at the point where you were recapping your commitments, conserving water. Can you just take it up from there?
Okay. I have been conserving water and reusing things and recycling things. It's not necessary for me to always buy new things. Sometimes just take out things that you already have and just reuse them. You can redesign them, things you don't always have to buy new, because buying new actually demanding on the atmosphere, it's demanding on the environment, basically. You don't always have to use new things. You can always reuse what you have. So that's what I've been doing. I'm reusing and I'm conserving.
Thank you so much. When you talk about water, it just came to my mind that the challenge of not having running water from our taps is the alternative we have in sachet water and bottled water. And, the indiscriminate use of that is perhaps contributing largely to the challenge we have with plastics. We're told that plastics take almost 1,000 years to degrade, and that's really mind-blowing. I'd like to hear Melvina's closing remark and your commitment to Mother Earth this year.
Hello, Femi.
Hi.
Oh, I had not even given my closing remark.
Oh, please go ahead.
So my remark would be that we should not treat this world as if we have inherited it from our parents or from our ancestors. Rather, we should treat it as a property that we borrowed from the unborn generation. And as anything that you borrowed, you are meant to return it back to them in good condition. So we should treat this earth as something that we're going to give to people in good condition. That would be my closing remark.
Absolutely. And I think there's a huge need for climate literacy. I like what you said about thinking of the next generation. That's perhaps the difference between the average and the great minds. So, the average man thinks of what am I going to eat? Where am I going to live? What will I bequeath to my children in a few decades? But the great minds are thinking thousands of years after now, will the planet still be in great condition? Melissa, Melvina rather, let's have your closing remarks and your commitment to Mother Earth this year. Is Melvina still online?
I was muted. Sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
Clearly, please go ahead.
Okay, so I was talking about energy. I'm okay with energy, so I would have to look into saving energy more from my house to my family's house, and I would also want to get my family involved. Yes, I've been talking about it since I became conscious of this energy issue and greenhouse gases, and so I would get my family involved. If I do that, and Kenny here gets his family involved, and Sadisu here gets his family involved, Nifemi gets his family involved, definitely that's a good change. That's a good change. So if you educate your family members on being responsible for the waste they produce, the energy they save, and that's what they don't save, wasting of water and not wasting of water, it goes a long way. They become aware of that, and then they tell the next person. So that is what I'm going to do, and that's what I'm doing, and that's what I'm going to do. And my closing remark is, see the earth as your friend. See the earth as something that gives back to you. Whatever you give back to you, that is what you give back to you. So give back good. Do good things to it, so it will give back better things to you. Thank you.
Sounds more like whatever you sow, you will reap.
Yeah.
I like what you said about energy, and I think I agree with Mr. Disu about the role government has to play in all of this. The role government has to play. You know that since the advent of prepaid meters, people now pay attention to the energy they consume. If you're using a prepaid meter now, you can't possibly just leave your bulbs, your security light on during the day. You are also conscious that whatever you live on, you really now have to pay for it, as against what used to be an estimated bill that comes at the end of the month. Mr. Disu, let's have your thoughts about this conversation and what your commitment is towards the World Earth Day.
Well, I run Right on the Beach, rightonthebeach.com. We're on all platforms, and we have a festival in November. That's an environmental festival where we bring in volunteers from the universities and from all around to help us to perform simple experiments to provide the data that government needs to make the decisions that they need to make to help them preserve our natural capital that surrounds us in this state. And we sell plastic neutral certificates by creating social plastic, which we do by cleaning up the beaches, basically of the Western Peninsula, and we use the money created, we put it back in the economy. That's why we're a social enterprise, to create scholarships and jobs for women and the youths in those areas. Me, myself, I think you have to separate your plastic at source. That is the most important thing. Your waste, you have to be aware of the waste you produce. And to separate your plastic at source is the easiest thing. You need 3 bins: one for compostables, one for nylon bags, one for PET bottles. That's all you need. And then you just get rid of them that way. Even if you put them out for the guys to carry, but you have done that, they will recognize that because they're recyclers. The government has provided so many things already. And they would recognize that, and they will put it in the right place. They will know how they will get it to the right place. So awareness is very important. What people are doing, creating the awareness, is what is needed. And what we're trying to do, create the awareness, and to target children, because they are the ones who really need to know, so that they do not inherit the bad habits of us, their parents, and they can change. These are very important things. It is important that we realize that somebody has to pay. Somebody has to pay. There will be a bill coming from Mother Earth, and you have to start preparing to pay for it. Hello?
Have our mental activate room today. Can you hear me?
Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you. We can hear you.
Oh, I doubt if Mr. Disu can hear me. I was just saying thank you, Mr. Disu, for joining us today on the podcast.
My
we
pleasure.
Appreciate your time. Mavino, Lisa, thank you so much for joining us. Olufo Kenny, it's always an exciting time having this conversation with you. So change begins with you, and that's one thing that I've learned on this one, that everyone has a part to play. No matter how small it is, we have to protect the planet Earth. A big thank you to everyone who's chosen to listen to this. Thinking Reimagined with Dr. Abba continues next week with another exciting one. Bye for now, everyone. I'm Nifa.
Bye.
All right, bye. Thank you.